I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Lethal Venom Podcast, the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth and the lies told. Today I'm joined by Mr. Andrew Davies. He is the Better Meetings Director of Early Working, which uses improv and theater to help build stronger teams made up of happier people and higher performers. Since starting in 2019, Early Working has led programs with over 100 innovative companies like Netflix, Roblox, Meta, and Google. With training in improvisation from the Magnet Theater, the facilitation from Georgetown University, Andrew is passionate about bringing those skills to strengthen company culture and people experience. His Better Meetings workshop helps teams together with purpose and play, designing and facilitating more effective meetings that people actually want to attend. Andrew has won several awards for his groundbreaking work, including the Young Pioneer Award from the Jewish Education Project to the Pomegranate Prize from the Covenant Foundation, and he is also the co-founder of Caricatures, the theatrical working tours where the past visits you, and as well as the Bible Players, which is a Jewish comedy team. When he's not working, he can be found making up songs with his toddlers and bike riding around Philadelphia or leading a free tennis camp in the neighborhoods. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to have this conversation. And I like, as I told you before, I like improv. So I'm so excited to get into it. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me and for the kind introduction. And yeah, really excited to be here and always happy to talk about improv or comedy or many other things, but especially those.
So tell me just a little bit about yourself and a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, so as you read, based in Philly, Pennsylvania, and what I do is really use improvisation as a way to bring people together, to help people learn about themselves and to really just spread joy in the world. So I studied improvisation in New York City at the Magnet Theater, as you mentioned, and then really found that it was life changing for me. And I thought it could be for other folks too. And so the tools of improv I really use as a way to start conversations, to help people reflect on who they are. And a lot of that happens with organizations, with companies, and with teams organizations. And also in my other work with Jewish schools and camps and children. And with characters, it's folks in Philly and New York, because those are site specific programs. But Artly Working and the Bible Players we do all over the country. So I'm really just playing improv games, teaching activities and modalities, and then really hoping the learning and the joy just spreads far and wide.
So is improv something that you always had like a passion for and or comedy? Tell me how you started your career working with improv and as well as comedy.
Yeah, I think growing up, I was always a bit of a goofball. Like if you look at my family photos from my childhood, I don't think I made a regular face in a photo till I was like 15 because I was like, why would you do that? They're taking a photo. I'm gonna go like, well, and just make a silly face, and um, always enjoyed being silly and doing comedy, doing theater as a kid, like loving theater, loving performing, and did theater through high school and college, and then really found improvisation really after college in New York City. And improv is something I always loved. I think I was introduced by Whose Line Is It Anyway, which a lot of folks know. There's a British version and an American version, but that's improv, short form improv games that are just so much fun and a blast to play. And that was definitely my introduction to improv. But then doing it in New York, it really felt like the bringing together of like the comedy and the goofiness that I loved growing up and the theater and taking things kind of seriously with storytelling that I really loved and brought those together. And so I kind of fell in love with it in New York, and it felt like the way I could use my silly comedy brain to really like help people and to spread joy. And so it's really been my work for about 15 years since then.
This might seem like a dumb question, but when you do improv, do you
All
need to
dumb
be
questions.
funny when you do improv?
Yeah, no, not a dumb question at all. I don't think you need to be funny to do improv. Improv is really about being in the moment and listening and creating something new together, right? And I think one of the misunderstandings about what improv is that it's for hilarious people to make up things on the spot and be so quick and so fast. But really, it's an art form, and it's something that you can grow and a muscle that you can learn. Like I often say that I see people walking down the street who are very muscular, and I don't think, oh, they were just born with amazing muscles, right? I'm like, oh no, I know they must go to the gym a few times a week and really work on that. In the same way, improv and being quick and being witty and being comedic isn't something you're just like born with or not born with. It's skills and it's muscles that you grow through work. And so improv is something really where you can grow those comedic muscles and grow that timing and that quickness. But it's also something that is really amazing for great listeners. I always think the first thing you need to be a great improviser is a great listener, because you're making things up on the spot, unlike other art forms. You need to be really great at listening to other folks so that you can build something together. So I always encourage folks, you don't need to be funny to do improv. In fact, I really want you to start from a place of not trying to be funny, but trying to be a great listener.
So, what is it about improv and theater that's relevant to the workplace?
Yeah, so when we come with Artly Working to the workplace, we really see that people need to trust their coworkers, right? People talk about trust a lot and working together, but how do you actually build trust? We see with a lot of teams that they sort of have company values or corporate values, or they'll say, we're all a family here. We all got to trust each other. But people don't necessarily feel it, right? They might feel like you say that, but I don't trust my folks. So, what we do when we come into teams, organizations, is to do improv activities together that really build that trust. We put them in situations where we play a game called I Love It, where they get put into like a zombie apocalypse, where we say, okay, let's say you're stuck on a train underground and there's zombies coming. You have to get out together. And the only rule is that no matter what your colleague says, you have to say, I love that, and then add something onto it, right? So they learn to be trust each other to build things together in what is pretending to be a stressful situation, but which is actually a lot of fun. So I think it's really helps teams to trust each other and work better together, and really makes happier people and stronger teams. And that just makes every workplace more effective and better in a lot of ways.
So, how can improv help improve employee retention?
Yeah, this is a big one that we really talk about with organizations, because in this era of hybrid work, remote work, people have a lot of options, right? It's not just like, oh, I can go to the store down the street. It's I can go to the business across the country. And the way that I think one of the ways that you really increase employee retention is by making your workplace a place that is collaborative, a place where people feel like seen and respected, and where they trust and like their coworkers, right? And so we really help people build a culture of connection, a culture of collaboration that makes folks want to work places. So what we do with a lot of organizations is we design their onboarding with them. So when folks join the company, one of the first things they do is to play improv games with us. And instead of just being read like, here's the company manual, here's our company values, they play a game with us and then unpack, okay, what is that value of, always striving to help each other? What does that mean in practice? And so when folks are brought in and made to be part of the team from the get-go, it really helps with employee retention. People want to be there. They don't just go there for the paycheck. They also go there to be their full selves.
Is it similar to how I know this is for comedy, but can this kind of improv be helpful when it comes to, because in some film industries, some movies do improv, like they'll ask actors to maybe improvise a scene. Does this kind
Mhm.
of help them as well when it comes to maybe if they want to do like film careers, TV careers, and anything that might use improv?
Yeah, I mean, for folks who are listening who are like in the arts, performance arts in some way, acting, stage acting, screen acting, improv is a huge help and I think is really helpful in that way. Like you said, I think films used to be all made on film, right? So the
Mhm.
time filming was really precious. So they would storyboard and block out not just every scene, but like every moment of dialogue every second. But in our digital era, right? Podcast case in point, Noah, right? We can create as much content as we want. So when folks are making movies or films these days, they'll often film the scene that they want and then say, okay, now let's do some other takes. Just try things, just improvise, right? Like try things out. Maybe we'll find something great. So I think these skills are super valuable for that. I think, Judd Apatow movies are some that I love. He's, a great comedic director. And what he does for a lot of his films is they're very much scripted. They're storied out, they're storyboarded, but he's also very happy to let the performers try things out, like go on a tangent to try a monologue. And it can be really helpful to have that muscle, for sure. Absolutely.
So how can someone make the remote meetings engage and interactive if they're not in person? Because I feel like for with improv, it's different when you're in person than versus when you're virtual. So what's some ways that they can make the remote meetings more engaging and interactive?
Yeah, I think remote meetings can be great, but often aren't, right? Meetings are often terrible. And the main reason that they are terrible when they are is that the boss or the team leader is just talking at everyone and not inviting participation, not inviting people to jump into it. And so improv can be a great way to get people to jump in. So it can be as simple as um, improvising things in the chat. I was on a meeting yesterday where we're planning a career fair in Philadelphia for different universities to come and offer jobs. And they were like, we need a new name for this. And so they were like, Andrew, can we put you on the spot? And I was like, great. Let's all put in the chat like one word that we think is connected to this, event. So it was like skills, jobs, careers. Okay, now everyone try and put together like two of those words to make a new headline and make it as silly as possible, like more bad ideas. And so people were just throwing things into the chat, and we had more ideas like in those 5 minutes in the chat than we did in the whole meeting when we were like taking turns talking, right? Because we can really just jump in there, right? That's something we can do virtually that's even easier than in person to say everybody throw in ideas at the same time. And the organizer was just writing down all these great ideas, even the silly ones. Like someone wrote, the skills to pay the bills, right? Which is like probably won't end up being the name, but maybe that's a fun tagline, or maybe that's something that becomes part of the promotion of the event. Um, so that's a really easy way. So like just use the chat as a brainstorming space throughout the meeting at any time. Really invites people to jump in and it keeps people connected because otherwise, like if they're joining, right? And Noah, if you're the head of our team and you're just monologuing about what's going on, I might be thinking about something else. I might be checking my fantasy football team over on the computer, right? Like, why am I going to pay attention if we're just talking at me? So it's really inviting play and participation into the meetings.
So there's just something called which I'll call ABCs. So what are the ABCs of better meetings?
Yeah, so for me, I like to teach the ABCs of better meetings, which are stand for affective, A, affective, B is behavioral, and C is cognitive. So it's about thinking about the goals of the meeting and using that to structure how you run it. So affective is how you want people to feel. Behavioral is what you want people to do during and after the meeting. And C is cognitive, what you want people to know. And I really like to have these in there because I think to even take 5 minutes to think about what are your goals on each of those fronts makes the meeting much more effective. People often skip over the A. Just like, how do you want people to feel? Like, is this meeting a celebration of the year that we've had at our company and how amazing we are? Or is it the opposite? Is this meeting like a warning that if we don't get our sales numbers up, we're going to shut down? Like, we're not going to be a company next year, right? So those two different A's would really affect the tone of the meeting, right? Like, if we're trying to celebrate, I would come up with all kinds of improv games to like celebrate, be silly, support each other. If we're trying to like, Hail Mary, like get down to business and things, I might come up with brainstorming ideas, like what are our big ideas, like throwing those out there. So it really affects it. So we have a template actually, and I'm happy to share with any of your listeners who are listening of the ABCs of meetings and a template for how to make the meeting. And whether you have a week to prepare for the meeting or the meeting starts in 5 minutes, these ABCs are really helpful.
So how does one get better at doing active listening?
It's a great question, right? It's hard, but I think improv games are a way to practice listening and thinking of what you're going to say at the same time. So a lot of times when we're listening to folks, we're already thinking of what we're going to say next, or we're already thinking about something else. Like I said, our fantasy football team or our grocery list or our kids or whatever it is. And active listening is really about really tuning into everything someone's saying and building on what they're saying. So improv games, we play one that's really simple called Breaking News, where you take turns making up news headlines. And Noah, if you want to try this out, we can, no pressure. Um, but where we take turns saying breaking news and we make up a news headline. So saying like breaking news, the rainforests are being cut by 20%. And then the next person has to make a new headline using any word from my headline. So we can't think ahead. So you might say, breaking news, 20% of teens now are on TikTok all night long, right? And then the next person picks a word and makes a new headline. So you're forced to try and not think ahead, but just be in the moment, actively listening to your partner, because you'll need what they say to make your next idea.
I was gonna say, I'm open to try that. That could be like a little bit of a game that we could do. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of show an example.
Yeah, let's try it out. It's fun. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
So I can start us off, Noah, and then you can do the second one. So all you have to do is pick any word from my headline and make a new headline. And it doesn't need to be real news. It's just we just say breaking news. So I'll start. Breaking news. New studies show that broccoli actually makes you fat.
Oh, this is gonna really show my slowness. Breaking news, um fat can be broken down by exercising 8 times a day.
Amazing. Perfect. All right. Breaking news. 8 times a day, cats and dogs become best friends.
Breaking news, new study shows cats are now allergic to dairy products.
Breaking news. Dairy products can actually make great cleaners for your toilet.
Breaking news, a recall has been made on 50,000 new toilets.
Breaking news. Total Recall breaks box office records in its reboot.
Breaking news, the box office is rolling out a new plan to calculate earnings.
Amazing. All right. Nice, Noah. That was great. So that's as simple as it is, right? So that's you and I going back and forth, but you felt it, right? I could see you can feel it's fun. It's also a little stressful. You're put on the spot. It's like a little bit
Uh,
intense. And that's kind of what I love about improv is that even though, you couldn't really say a wrong news headline, right, Noah? Like there's no real right or wrong news headline, but we put a little pressure on ourselves, right? Like you put a little pressure on yourself to like be fast or try and make it funny or try and make it this or that. And you could see how like if you play that game the first time, it's a little tough. It's a little slow. You're thinking about what's right or wrong. If we played that game together for, 5 minutes a day for the next week, by next weekend, you could do that game in your sleep. Like that muscle would be a lot stronger. So that's what's so fun about improv is like you can start that simple and you can build to much harder games like an ABC scene where you and I would do a scene as characters, Noah, but begin each letter, like each line of dialogue with the next letter of the alphabet. So
Mhm.
that's one that is great, but that's kind of like a level two, right? Where we'd be like, Alfred, where's dinner? I thought you were making dinner. Beatrice, I told you the spaghetti bolognese takes a long time, and just doing the next letter. So A, B, C, those are much tougher. But you can start simple like we did with breaking news.
It's funny that you mentioned the ABC one because this is from where my childhood comes out. There was a show, Victorious, that involved singing, and people that grew up in the 2000s, 2010s, they've probably more than likely seen it. But I remember in the pilot episode they did this thing where um they would actually do an improv scene and they would actually do the first letter of the alphabet. So an example was, let me see if I can remember lines from the show. Um, I remember they started with the letter P. For some reason, they started in the middle of the alphabet, and there was like, um, someone said, "Please go wash the dishes," and then the next one was like, "Quit telling me what to do," and then the next one was, "Relax, girls. Let's try to get along." And then it was kind of like they would go
Right.
through the alphabet, and it was a thing where if they either forgot the alphabet or didn't say the right letter, they got out and they had to sit down.
Mm.
So I like that you brought that up because kind of they actually used that in that show for the pilot, and it was like just for like a scene where they had to um act out, and I thought that just brought back a memory I had. So
That's
does
great. Yeah.
when it comes to improv, is there like a particular tactic for like when comedians, if they wanted to do like an improv set, is there like kind of a go-to of like a step by step of how they need to accurately do improv to where it kind of nails the mark of trying to get laughs from the audience?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's different schools of thought about improv, and like depending on where you study, they'll think different things. Um, in New York City, I studied at the Magnet Theater, and there's two other big theaters: the People's Improv Theater, the Pit, and the UCB, which is a little more famous. Folks might know the Upright Citizens Brigade, and they all have similar ideas but different schools of thought. Like I think that I would summarize what the Magnet's philosophy is as like be really truthful and then find the funny. And I think other schools like the Upright Citizens Brigade might say more find the funny and keep it truthful and be truthful, right? So there are some like formulas that you can learn about rhythms of jokes, about things to find. Um, but part of the fun of improv also is like breaking those formulas, right? So it's learning them to break them. One of the strategies I always say to folks, if you're brand new to improv, that's a great go to all the time, is just matching. So if you think back to Saturday Night Live or any like sketch comedy group that you love, so many of the great characters are just two people that sound the same, right? So it depends on your generation, like who comes to mind when I say that. But like in the 70s, there's like the wild and crazy guys who just were always said, we're wild and crazy guys. And then, Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan had their like club guys that just always danced the same and bumped people together. But it's two people doing the same thing is always funny. So, like, Noah, if you and I did an improv scene or we did it with other folks, if you started the scene and I had no idea what to do, I would just match your energy. So, if you started as like a cheerleader, you're like, oh my God, I'm so nervous for tryouts. Are we going to get on the team? I would just match you and say, like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know. Last year we got cut. I want to make the team this year, right? Because to match someone else, match their energy, match their voice, match their personality, instantly kind of fun for the audience to watch. Like if you make a twin. So I think that's a really great beginner strategy you can always come back to if you're not sure what to do, is just like match your partner. It's kind of always fun to watch. If one person starts as an old guy who's complaining, you come in as an old guy who's complaining, right? If one person starts as you know, a football star who just scored a touchdown, like, yeah, bro, touchdown. The other guy come in with that same energy, and you'll find a scene. You'll find a fun relationship. Yeah.
I think improv more, to me, improv kind of shows more of a creative mind. Now, I think every comedian, I don't think it's wrong to have a kind of a thing of kind of a set schedule or like a guideline, like, okay, I'm going to say this story, this story, this story. And, something that's really gotten popular now in comedy sets has been like audience interaction and being able to like kind of talk with the audience. How much does improv rely on that kind of interaction with the audience? Because I see it as very much as a great tool for improv because you don't know these people beforehand. You don't know anything about them before you get up on stage. So it's a lot of kind of learning about jokes on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about stand-up comedians, doing they would call it crowd work, right? Like doing crowd work, going into the crowd,
Yeah.
talking to folks. Um, and it's definitely that's a form of improvising for sure. I think I think for comedy is funny when it's true and when it's in the moment, right? And so I think stand-up comedians find that funny because if you talk to someone in the crowd, you're automatically going to be at least reflecting the experiences of one person in your audience, right? Whereas if you do your set straight up, especially when you're kind of working on it, it may or may not resonate with the particular folks that are in front of you. Improv is a little bit different because we usually get suggestions from the audience, get ideas from the audience, and then kind of run with them. So the initial ideas will come from the audience. When I was on a musical improv team in at the Magnet for a while, we would get a word from the audience and then make up like a half-hour musical inspired by that word. So it was connected to an idea from the audience. We were showing them that we hadn't prepared it in advance. Like if they gave us tuna fish or stapler or whatever, we would run with it. But it was all our ideas building on each other. But you're definitely always feeling the energy of the crowd. And you come sometimes feel when the crowd connects with something you say, right? Like emotionally, or they're laughing, or if they go like, "ah," like you might lean into that. Or if something you do is getting a laugh, you kind of learn to feel that, and maybe you come back to that in future beats. So there's definitely always an interactive element that brings it to life in a really fun way. And I think, it was funny during the pandemic and COVID, a lot of people did like comedy online, but it's very hard because when you can't like hear the laughter and have that interaction, it really takes out that feedback loop that's so important for comedy, I think. Like when I do new games, new improv games, or write new comedic bits, you really quickly get feedback from the audience of like what was funny or not. Like I often say, all you can do with comedy is write down what you think is funny and then share it with people. But they let you know if it's actually funny, right? Like you might think a joke is hilarious, Noah. Like I write down this joke, I'm like, this is brilliant. This is the funniest joke I've ever written. And then you share it with one or two or three audiences and they don't laugh. And you're like, okay, I was wrong. Like they're right, like it's not so funny. It's really you get that feedback instantly with their laughter for sure.
I have such a huge respect for improv because I'm one person that I would like to try to do improv, but again, I'm slow sometimes. So I just be standing up on stage and be like, um, and be like, having a moment. So when you're stuck in if someone's doing improv and they get stuck, what's a way that they can kind of save themselves from it and kind of have still make a successful comedy set even if they get stuck on something?
Yeah. Um, I'll say no that even in our playing of breaking news, I saw that from when we started playing the game to when we finished playing the game, you got faster, right? Like your responses got faster and more specific. So while you might feel like you're a slow starter or your first day doing improv, you might be a little bit slower than other folks. On day 10, day 20, like you're going to be faster. It's like I think a lot of folks say like work beats talent every time, right? Like putting in the effort like wins. But in terms of like how you can help if you're like in the moment, you're lost in an improv scene, you're like, I don't know what's going on. I have no ideas. One of my teachers who I love, Tara Copeland, who's this amazing performer based in LA now, she would say, always come back to an I statement. always just say something about your character, like ground your character. So Noah, let's say you're in a scene, you're a teacher, you're with a student, and that's your scene. You're doing a scene back and forth, and you're just like, I don't know what we're doing, I don't know where we're going. You can always go back to like an I statement to say something true about your teacher to like create a richer world for you, right? So you could say like, Jeremy, like I'm only a teacher because I could never make it on Broadway. I actually always wanted to be a Broadway actor, right? And now you've given your character so much more to play with because now you've said like, oh, you didn't really want to be a teacher. You're a Broadway actor inside, but you're pretending to be a teacher. Or you could say, Jeremy, I'm teaching, but I'm going to be honest. Like, I drank way too much last night. That's why I'm hungover right now. That's why I'm not really doing well teaching you, right? So in your scene now, we get an insight into your character. So you just say something true for your character, and it doesn't have to be funny. It just has to like give some more things, and that's a gift to your scene partner because now they can say like, Jeremy, like teacher, I don't think you're supposed to tell me that you're drinking, like or whatever it is. Like you can add to the richness of your scenes. I think going back to I statements really is a big help.
So, have you ever done improv on like a comedy stage before? And if you have, tell me what that experience was like
In terms of like a stand-up comedy stage or what? Yeah.
in stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I've done some stand-up comedy. Many years ago I tried stand-up comedy for a bit, and I've also done a lot of sketch comedy and improv. In some places, these worlds tend to be more separate than others. In New York City, a lot of venues are either doing improv or stand up, but not both as much. In Chicago, for instance, I think there's a lot more blending of like stand up, improv kind of coming together. Um, but I've definitely done like I've sometimes brought my guitar and like improvised songs in a set in a place where most people are doing stand up comedy sets. And so it's definitely a little bit different, but I think fun because it leans into my strengths and what I like to do. So yeah, it's always fun, but different. I think, you prepare for a show with the limitations that you have. Like oftentimes stand-up sets are very rigid about like you have 7 minutes or you have 12 minutes or you have 3 minutes. And that's really important. So when I go into that setting, I think about, okay, what kind of improv could work in this very limited time frame? Whereas when you're doing a longer improv show, there's more flexibility that way. Yeah.
So, is improv something that's mainly for people that are extroverted, or is can improv be used for people that might classify as being an introvert?
Yeah, I think it's really valuable for everyone. And in the visiting organizations with Arlie working, we often get this question or this pushback, like our team are really introverted. We work with a lot of tech companies, a lot of science companies, a lot of health tech companies. And folks tell us like our team is mostly introverts. And I come back to what I said, which is that improv is really about being a great listener. And I've seen people who are terrified to try out improv, terrified to jump into a scene, and end up saying the most brilliant thing because they've been really attuned in and listening to other folks and jumping in. And in the same way, if someone's extroverted, they might come in, Noah, saying, like, oh, I got this. I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to be hilarious. And they end up just kind of rolling and not listening to anyone and it not working as well. So I honestly think improv is definitely for everyone, and introverts can definitely really jump into it. And I think it really helps us learn about ourselves as well. When you do an improv game, a lot of times, if you notice how you feel, it can help you as someone that's extroverted or introverted to think about what situations in which you feel comfortable and what situations make you quite uncomfortable, quite scared, quite nervous. And that knowledge is really good to know, right? Like if you get really nervous, we play a game called Speech, where in a circle, we take turns coming into the middle and giving a speech, but we don't get to decide what the speech is about. The group tells us what it's about. And this one really scares a lot of people, but the experience of doing it can help people understand like what makes them nervous, what could help them be less nervous, how they could feel supported.
If people are listening that want to, if they want to give improv a try, what's the first steps they need to know when it comes to learning how to do improv?
Yeah, I mean, I really recommend to folks if you want to try to Google in your local area and find a local improv school. There are a lot, and in most cities in America, at least. I don't want to speak for every town across the country. There are great improv schools, and to learn in person with folks, to take a one-on-one class, they often have free intro classes even to try it out, I think is a really great way to do it. I think also hop onto YouTube and search for Whose Line Is It Anyway to get a sense of what it looks like, or find folks who are doing amazing improv right now. Ben Schwartz comes to mind, who folks might know from Parks and Rec. He was kind of a regular recurring character as John Ralphio on Parks and Rec. He's one of the best improvisers in the world and has some amazing specials, including on Netflix, a two-man show that he did with Middleditch and Schwartz, with Thomas Middleditch from Silicon Valley. And the two of them do improv shows together. So just to watch those and see if that looks like fun, but also to remind yourself that you're not going to start with that, right? You're going to start with the simpler games that build up to those harder games, um, rather than jumping in. And Noah, my dog, has just decided he wants to join the podcast, so he's here next to me.
Oh, how sweet.
He's quiet unless someone comes to our door, and then we'll hear him barking his head off, you know? So
I 100% get it. We have a dog too that's the same way, so that's no problem. Um, where do you see, in terms of the future, where do you see improv when it comes to its growth and just kind of the future of how improv will evolve?
yeah, I mean, my dream is that everyone is aware of improv and that most people give improv at least a try to see how it feels, to see what they learn from it, because I think it's just so valuable in people's lives. In terms of performance and kind of the professional space, like I mentioned, Ben Schwartz, I love the experimenting he's doing with different forms of improv. I think there's always new art forms to try, and the ability to, like we talked about earlier, film everything and put it out there allows for people to learn from art forms and learn from different structures of improv that are super fun. Like one of my favorite shows in New York that they did on Monday nights once a month was called Gravid Water, and they would have a Broadway or off Broadway actor learn the lines of a scene, a two-person scene, and have them memorize all the lines, rehearse it, get it ready to perform it as they would for any scene, and pair them with an improviser who knows nothing about the scene that they've learned. And the actor had to stay on book with the lines that they had memorized, while the improviser could say whatever they wanted. But no matter what the improviser said, the actor had to stay with their next line. Brilliant and amazing to watch the improviser like try and keep up. So I love different kind of forms of improv that folks come up with, and different versions of that are just super fun.
If someone's listening right now and they want to try to do improv professionally as like part of their routine and career, what advice do you have for them on how they can successfully integrate improv into their comedy set if they are listening and they work for a company that focuses on improv and they want to learn some tips on how to improve? What's some steps that they could take to start um, successfully using improv?
Yeah, it's a lot of different folks. So, I mean, certainly I'm happy if anyone's listening, you can reach out to me, Andrew at artlyworking.com, and happy to have like a one-on-one chat about where you're at and where you're hoping to go with improv to think about it. For folks who are kind of just trying to try it out and think about improv a little bit, I would say like looking up local classes or starting with videos. And then there's great books I'd recommend if you're a person that likes to read about something a little bit first before you jump in. So there's a great book called Do Improvise by Robert Poynton. That's really amazing and pretty short to jump into it. Truth in Comedy is a beautiful book that was written years ago, kind of about some of the history of the improv world and all of that. If you're listening from a business and a workplace standpoint, happy to talk about all the programs we do with better meetings, with onboarding, working with teams, designing special things. And there's also a great book called Business Improv, written by Val and Sarah G, which is different improv activities you can use in the workplace. And their recommendation is kind of doing one a week with your team and how you can use it and why you can use it. And I love a lot of their activities, so they're a great way to start as well.
Well, Andrew, I appreciate you for so much for coming on here. As I said before, I like improv and I like comedy. So, hearing and also hearing other forms of ways that improv is used was so beneficial. You had mentioned kind of a personal website. If people would like to check out your company, the Artly Training or Artly Working, excuse me,
Yeah.
and they would like to learn more about that company, where can they find that company? And as well as if you have social media accounts that you'd like to promote as well, feel free to promote them.
Sure. Thanks, Noah. Yeah, and thanks so much for having me on for this conversation. So yeah, Artly Working. It's like hardly working, but Artly Working, Artly working. So our website is just artlyworking.com. You can find us on LinkedIn as well at Artly Working. I think that's the best social media to find us on. And reach out, email us, message us. If you want to find my other projects, Characters is theatrical walking tours in New York City and Philadelphia. So if you're visiting either of those places, those are really fun. And then if you're listening and you're a Jewish member of the audience connected to a Jewish institution or have a friend that is, my group, The Bible Players, is at thebibleplayers.com. And we use improv and comedy as a way to talk about Jewish values and how we treat each other. And that's another great way as well. And you can email me, Andrew at artlyworking.com, ARTLY working.com.
I'll put all of his links in the description box as well,
Thank you.
so that it's easy access for all my listeners to find. If you would like to stay connected with me, you're more than welcome to follow me on social media as well. Instagram and TikTok, it's Lethal Venom Podcast, and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, it's Noah's Podcast. Feel free to follow those if you'd like to keep up to date with behind the scenes stuff and just general information about the podcast on the social media side. And you can also follow Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm on all the major platforms, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. I'm everywhere. Just feel free to follow to get notified when new episodes come out. Um, Thank you to all my listeners for tuning in today. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.